Anna Hazelnutt has climbed her second E9 with an ascent of the Walk of Life E9 6C at Dyer's Lookout in Devon. The line was first climbed by Pearson in 2008, and Anna is the first woman to complete the route. Ever since Anna climbed Once Upon a Time in the Southwest back in September 2021, which was impressively one of her first trad routes, she had her eyes on the Walk of Life. Anna told UKC, "In my mind, both climbs were so entirely out of the question that I figured I might as well try both on a top rope and enjoy what the sea cliff has to offer. Slab climbing is my favourite style, so the fact that there were two lines on this stunning face was super exciting. The line is filled with unique, flowy sequences that are quintessentially slab. The first time you touch the holes on the wall, they seem near impossible, but after swinging around for hours, playing with different combinations, movements begin to click and your body relaxes to find the flow. Such good climbing." Last week, Anna and Tom Randall found the time to head back to the southwest and project the climb. Anna spent the week piecing together the moves and finding the gear, and on the last day of the trip, Sunday, she climbed the route. She told UKC, "Luckily, I sent it on my first attempt. I didn't really want to fall on some of the gear I had placed, although my placements are definitely getting better and smoother now that I have a bit more trad experience under my belt. Tom even said I looked like a proper trad climber this time round. On the send, I felt confident and in contrast to Once Upon a Time in the Southwest, pretty fearless and in control. I was nervous about the no fall zone in the beginning, but after making the crux move on that section, I let myself be present and enjoy the climbing all the way to the top. I think I spent something like 45 minutes on the climb, if not more, because I milked every little rest I could find. Also, it was particularly windy on Sunday, so I timed my movements between big gusts, which made the whole thing quite exciting." Pearson has climbed Neil Gresham's route Lexicon E11 7A at Pavey Ark in Langdale. James arrived at the crag with his long-term climbing partner, Keith Bradbury, who abseiled down the route and suggested that James go for a flash attempt. James quickly followed on the ab, using it to check out the gear and the holds and measure the body positions. After a day of preparing for the route, James returned and went for a lead attempt. He said, "Unfortunately, I messed up the sequence of the first boulder problem, spending way too much time and energy on the tiny crimps, and despite a good fight on the moves above." On his third lead attempt, which started from the halfway break, James managed to piece together a sequence and latch the finishing jug. He told UKC, "I ended up coming with a bit of a hybrid method between what I've seen Neil, Steve and Dave using. But luckily the rock's really cool with hundreds of little tiny holds, and it seems like even though there are various different methods that you can use, it all comes back to around about the same difficulty." James returned later in the week after preparing for his sister's wedding. At 4 PM, he arrived at the crag to high winds and a wet lower half of the route. James said, "I made it up to the middle of the break with wet hands and wet feet and it was blowing a hoolie, and I didn't think it would work, but sometimes I think the best way for me is just to have no expectations." James praised Neil's efforts in finding and establishing the route. "I just can't get over how no one had really spotted it before. It came down to the vision of Neil to really open that thing up. Now that I've climbed on it, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that it's already been repeated so many times, because it's a very, very hard route, which clearly is still very approachable, and such a fun line with such a cool sequence." Will Bosi has climbed 2 Font 8Cs in the past week with a sit start to Dan Varian's Bewilderness 8B+ in Deepdale, and a repeat of Aidan Roberts' Outliers 8C at Trowbarrow. Will first climbed Bewilderness in June 2020 and it took him just 4 attempts. 2 years later, he returned to try the low start, repeating Bewilderness before trying the sit. It was a formality after this, and after a couple of attempts, Will had climbed all the moves and did it on his first attempt from the floor. He has named the sit-start Trance, and it adds 9 Font 8A moves to the start of Wilderness. A week later, Will was at Trowbarrow, attempting Aidan Roberts' Outliers. Will has had an exceptional year so far. He had a productive trip over to Adam Onder's hometown of Brno, and more recently repeated another of Aidan's Font 8Cs on the Bowderstone called Silent Singer. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more news every week.